Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. This recording that I am doing right now is essentially the first of what I hope will be many recordings that I actually do. And this is essentially the start of what I hope will be a new show that I'll be doing on a reoccurring basis, and the frequency of which is to be determined. It is to be determined how often I actually do these recordings. But what I'm calling this thing is the roll call, Reggie's roll call, if you will. And what I want to try to do over the course of this recording, this video, is to share with you guys some things that are kind of sort of top of mind for me, but then also to pull you all into the conversation as well. So the way that this is going to kind of flow is that I'm actually going to talk about some current events that are top of mind for me, and that may be top of mind for you as well. And then over the course of this video, we're going to touch on a couple of different things. We're actually going to hear from some of you at various points over the course of this recording. And so I'm going to be pulling comments and questions that have come in to me from email, from Instagram, from Twitter, from YouTube itself. And wherever these questions have kind of popped up that have caught my attention, I may actually talk about them here on this particular recording. But then I'm also actually going to pull in some content from you guys. I have spent some time actually reaching out to several of you on the phone to actually have some conversations, and we are going to feature some of those recordings in this recording as we move forward. There's definitely going to be some here in this one, and as I do these things in the future, you're definitely going to be basically hearing from your peers and colleagues in the comic book community, and the topics will really range. It'll be whatever is really top of mind for me, or whatever it is that I'm seeing out there that you guys are talking about that I want to also talk about as well. So the frequency of this is to be determined. The hope is that I can do them on a regular and ongoing basis. But to be honest with you, to some degree or another, you guys control that, right? If people get on board with this content, if people watch it, if people enjoy it, that will motivate me to do more of these recordings. And if not, then you may never, ever hear about this again. But I remain hopeful that this is going to be successful, like so many other things that we've attempted to do here on the channel, thanks to your help. So with that, we are actually going to dig into our first segment right now, which is a news event that has caught my attention. So this is really one of those topics that has been bubbling up for quite some time over the last couple of weeks. And it's actually something that I have spoken about and to some degree, a lot of detail. And if you guys remember the recording that I did about clickbait, this is very much one of those titles, one of those topics that is like the clickbaitiest of clickbait type of topics. And it really is one of those things, man, that if you really sat down and you thought about it, you would realize that this was just one of those things that just was not going to happen. Right? You would realize that this is one of those things that would just not happen. But a lot of us don't take the time to necessarily think about it. We see that headline on YouTube or on Twitter or whatever it happens to be, and we click it and then we go and then we watch it. And that is essentially what people want us to do. They want us to just look at the headline and just be so enticed, so enthralled, even if that headline is misleading and not necessarily accurate. We click on it. And so this is one of those topics that was just all the rage. It was all the rage recently, and honestly might still be. But this is one of those things that I actually talked about, and I said, guys, if you think about it, if you think about it for a couple of seconds, you will realize that this is just some clickbait stuff. And so I actually found this article on the Motley Fool. And it was honestly, I think, a pretty well written article by the author. There were some things that I think were slightly inaccurate and not necessarily depicted the right way. But I think overall it is actually a solid article, and it is entitled, and I'll try to put the link in the description so that you guys are able to actually go find this thing. I may even try to post it to regiecollects.com so you guys can find it there. I need to figure out how best to direct you guys to some of these things, because I want you guys to go read these things. I don't want you to just take my word for it. I actually want you guys to go read these things, because I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful if you take the time to actually look at the source material yourself. So this is one that I actually found on the Motley Fool, and it was entitled, "Is AT&T Getting Ready to Sell DC Comics?" And this is actually something that just recently, as of this recording, was published the day before. And the week or so prior to the recording, to this recording right now, prior to this article being published, this was like the hot topic. This is the hot topic. Marvel is about to buy DC. DC is going out of business, and AT&T is going to sell. They're going to sell everything. They're going to sell it all to Marvel. And I said, man, that is just not true. It is just not true, and it's not true for so many reasons. And I try to talk about some of those things, and it's just one of those things that there's just so much. There's so much to point out as to why something isn't true that you're just like, where do I begin, right? But I think that this writer did a pretty solid job. And I want to read this to you. He says, last year, several reports claimed that AT&T could sell DC Comics, which it gained from its takeover of Time Warner to appease activist Elliott Management's demand to streamline its business and boost its profits. So I've actually encountered this before. I've actually been on the losing end of these kind of things, where there is a corporate raider that owns a significant portion of a company and is basically saying, I demand that you make this change or that change because it is the right thing to do in my estimation to boost my profits. And I've actually seen this. Again, I've seen this happen in the pharmaceutical industry, an industry that I've been in for a little over 15 years. I've seen it happen before. And so Elliott Management is basically saying, hey, AT&T, I am a substantial shareholder. I want you to make some changes. Because I am a substantial shareholder, you have to listen to me, and I want these changes to take place. And so I think that is part of what caught people's attention. Those that actually looked beyond the headlines, I think that's part of what caught people's attention, that these corporate raiders can have a serious impact on what a company actually does. A publicly traded company can absolutely be moved by a shareholder that has a significant amount of stock in that company. There is no doubt. There is no doubt. I've seen it happen. You guys have probably seen it and heard about it as well. The author goes on to say that AT&T did not divest the 85-year-old brand, which owns iconic characters like Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman. But its recent actions suggest that some changes could occur. First, they say, Warner Brothers abruptly fired DC co-publisher Dan DiDiorio, who held the top position alongside Jim Lee over the last 10 years. That is major. That change right there is major. And so a lot of people said, hey, man, the change is a-coming. Change is in the air and change is coming. They just fired the publisher. It is about to rain. It is about to rain down. Change is a-coming, right? I mean, I could see how people could hear that and assume that it is now time for change, because you don't fire a publisher abruptly overnight. You on a whim. You just don't do that. You do not fire that person. But again, maybe there was something that was happening behind the scenes that we are not privy to, right? Because it seems sudden to us, but maybe it wasn't so sudden. The author goes on to say, shortly afterward, a few industry reports claimed that Disney's Marvel could either acquire DC Comics or license its characters for new comics. I'm going to just be honest with you, that seemed completely implausible to me. I struggled with this one from the very moment that I heard it. And the author points out here, he says, Lee, talking about Jim Lee, one of my favorites, now serving as the company's head publisher, quickly dismissed those rumors. But as you guys know, the rumors were already rampant. There were already YouTube videos and Twitter tweets and posts everywhere talking about Marvel is about to buy DC. And we know that Jim Lee very quickly disputed those rumors. We know that, right? This guy from the Motley Fool isn't just going to make stuff up. This is a reputable, right? This is a reputable organization that focuses on stocks and investment. They are not going to say this if this is not true, if it is not substantiated. And this is one thing that I've talked about, is the source of information. Who is putting the information out there, right? This is a really important thing. The author goes on to say that, however, all of these developments, all of what is happening, this corporate raider, this corporate investor basically saying, hey, you need to make some changes. The firing of the publisher. These are signs that something is brewing at DC. And the question remains, could AT&T sell or kill off DC Comics? And again, from the very beginning, I did not believe these things to be true. I'm going to be honest with you. I did not believe these things to be true from the very first moment that I read them, that I heard them. I think this is one of those rumors that has been around for decades. And in my mind, unless a publicly traded company makes some declarations publicly, unless a reputable news agency is the one that is responsible for releasing or leaking or this news around something, I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. And part of where this stuff was coming from was this organization that I don't even think is a reputable organization that was saying all of these things about what DC was about to do and what Marvel was about to do. And my thing is, these are very large organizations that are part of a man. If you've never tried to go through the annual report for like Disney or AT&T, treat yourself to a snooze fest. These annual reports and 10Ks are some of the most elaborate financial documents that you will ever read. They are not going to break news on a website that we have never heard of before. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The amount of money that is involved in these types of decisions does not leak out accidentally from some website that we've never heard of before. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. There's too much money at play for these kinds of things to happen. There is a fiduciary responsibility that many of these folks that are actually in positions of power, the fiduciary responsibility that they have to shareholders to not do this kind of stuff. So when people say, hey, saw it on the website, saw the tweet that it's about to happen, it's just not true. But the thing is that this article is AT&T getting ready to kill DC Comics. This article is actually well written. It is a solid news article that I honestly enjoy reading. There is a lot of facts. There's a lot of data that is in here. And this intro paragraph that the couple of paragraphs that I've read to you, they really are compelling, right? They kind of move you along in the story. They pull you in. They dispel some things, right? While they're basically like, hey, there's this thing out here that could happen, but hey, this thing isn't true that you may have heard about, but maybe, just maybe something will happen based upon some other facts. Read on. Read on. That is the feeling that you get when you read this article, because it is a really well-written article. It really is. But I want to spend some more time on this thing. If you don't know anything about AT&T, let me just tell you that AT&T owns a lot of stuff. AT&T, man, If you search for what AT&T actually owns on the Google machine, you will find graphics and schematics that will just make your mind swirl because they own so much stuff. The mergers and the acquisitions and all of this kind of stuff has put them in a position where AT&T owns a lot of stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about the landscape of what it is that AT&T actually owns, because I think that it will help as I drill in a little bit more on some of the state. And we're really going to focus more on the relevant entities that AT&T actually owns. And so from a TV perspective, AT&T owns the CW network. And the CW network is actually a joint venture between AT&T and Viacom CBS. And I think Viacom CBS is a merger for another day that we'll talk about, right? But the CW network is actually a joint venture, which basically means that a certain percentage of it is owned by AT&T, a certain percentage of it is owned by Viacom CBS, and they basically come together to do some work because they realize that there is some money to be made, right? And I don't know what the split is between those two organizations, but AT&T came to their ownership through merger and acquisition, and Viacom CBS, I'm guessing, also have come to this through merger and acquisition as well, because there's a lot of consolidation just everywhere. It doesn't matter the industry, pick one. There's a lot of mergers and acquisitions. But the CW network is actually home to a couple of really, really cool shows that I got hooked on at one point, right? The CW network is home to shows like The Green Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, and also Batwoman. I mean, that right there is just an impressive rundown. I think Green Arrow's been on TV for what, 6 years, 7 years, something like that. I mean, it's been a while. It's actually a really good show. It is actually a really good show. Same thing with Flash. I actually really enjoy Flash. I watched the first maybe 1 and 2 seasons of Supergirl. I watched maybe a couple of episodes of Legends of Tomorrow and a couple of episodes of Black Lightning. I have not seen Batgirl or Batwoman. I have not seen that one. Maybe one day I'll actually watch that. But the point is that AT&T actually owns a pretty large footprint when you think about television through their joint venture with Viacom CBS. But AT&T also owns, as I kind of alluded to, they own some other stuff. And they own some stuff which has some stuff that rolls up to it, which is relevant to the discussion that we're about to have. So AT&T actually owns Warner Media. And Warner Media is essentially like, it's like an umbrella organization where there's a lot of stuff that kind of rolls up under it. Under Warner Media, there are a couple of entities, including Turner Cable Networks, HBO, and Warner Brothers. Those are 3 of the entities that roll up underneath it. And underneath Warner Brothers, there's actually a couple of layers. So underneath Warner Brothers, there is DC Films, and there's also DC Entertainment. And under DC Entertainment, there is actually DC Comics. So again, when you think about this landscape, it is layers upon layers upon layers of organizations. A lot of organizations that control a lot of media, from movies to the streaming services to TV shows to TV networks. There is a lot that rolls underneath AT&T. And so I think that it's really important to kind of lay some of that stuff out, because I think that it actually helps with this next section that we're about to talk about. And the next section is around the money. By understanding the landscape, it helps us to understand how the money flows. And so hopefully you guys fully appreciated that. Maybe you even drew a diagram. Maybe even drew a diagram of what I tried to describe there, because it is layers upon layers upon layers, right? But at the end of the day, AT&T owns a lot of stuff. And some of the stuff that they own some other stuff. And all of those things have been pulled together through merger and acquisition, right? That is like the best way to think about it. But the author in this article, he goes on to talk about how Warner Brothers actually generated, wait for it, Warner Brothers actually generated $14 $14.4 billion in revenue. I mean, I skipped right over millions. $14.4 billion in revenue. And this is actually equivalent to 43% of Warner Media's revenue. So again, if you look at Warner Brothers, which is a subsidiary of Warner Media, that $14.4 billion represents 43% of Warner Media's revenue. It tells you a lot. It tells you that Warner Media makes a whole lot of money if that's only 43%. But it also says that Warner Brothers makes a tremendous amount of money. But when you roll it up, so Warner Brothers is on the bottom rung, 14.4. It's 43% of Warner Media. Warner Media is the parent company of, and when you take it up another level, the 14.4 billion represents only 8% of AT&T's total revenue. 14.4 million represents only 8% of AT&T's revenue. How much money does AT&T pull in if 14 billion is 8%? That is a lot of money. That is a lot of money. Within that total, Warner's Games and Other segment, right? This is a group. Games and Other segment, which includes DC Comics. So DC Comics is so small they get rolled into Other. It just rolls in. It gets rounded off into zeros because it's that small of a number. Includes DC Comics, video games, and other products. But it actually excludes TV and film properties. This Games and Other segment generated $2 billion in revenue. $2 billion of the 14.4 came from other, which includes DC Comics. Now, within that $2 billion that is other, it is estimated that around $300 million of that revenue was actually generated from comics. And this is based upon data from Comic-Con. This is actually something that I've spoken about, is that the comic book industry in and of itself is a $1 billion industry, which is not bad. That is a respectable number. We've been talking about some crazy numbers in this video, but $1 billion is a respectable number. And so Comic-Con basically says that the comic book industry is a $1 billion market, of which DC actually has about a 30% share of. So around 300 million is around their revenue. That is their portion of this $100 billion market. And again, that is nothing. That is nothing to sneeze at, the fact that it's around $300 million. But there's more money, right? We've spoken about, again, how out of the 14.6 billion, 300 million of that comes from comics. But when you go up a level, when you go up and you start talking about the movies and the TV shows, collectively the 8 DC Extended Universe films have grossed about $5.5 billion globally over the last 7 years. $5.5 billion globally. Some of those have been good, some of those have not. Let's just be honest. $5.5 billion globally. That's a lot of money. Joker, which actually isn't even part of the DC Extended Universe, actually contributed an additional $1 billion and 2 Oscars. You can't overlook the importance of an Oscar, right? But collectively, it is over $6.5 billion that have come from the various DC movies. And when you drill a little further, the 300 million, while significant, right? The 300 million is an important number. That is there is no doubt about that. That is a significant amount of money. But when you look at it, it really just amounts to 0.2% of AT&T's annual revenue. Man, 0.2% of DC's annual revenue. That is actually a drop in the bucket. Literally a drop in the bucket. That money gets rounded off in the zeros because it is that small an amount of money. And so some might say that, hey, the money that comes from DC Comics isn't even worth it. It's not even worth it. So why not sell it? Why not just divest of that entity and move on to something else? Because that is an argument that could be made. But the thing is that by divesting of DC Comics, there are some ramifications that are associated with that, right? DC comics in and of themselves are a great source of material, not just for the TV shows, but also for the movies, which, as I mentioned, grossed over $6.5 billion. Even if you're willing to forfeit that money, which I don't know why you would, part of what you would give up by getting rid of DC Comics, by licensing it out, by giving up control and stuff like that, is that you give up control, right? And control is what this is all about. AT&T is gobbling up these organizations and piecing them together. Why? For the purpose of control and the purpose of generating additional revenue. So by divesting itself of DC Comics and forfeiting that money, they are also divesting themselves not just of the money, but also of control of those characters that are being leveraged, not just in print, but also in TV, not just in TV, but also in film, and not just in film, but also in streaming services, all of which actually make a tremendous amount of money to the tune of $14.4 billion. Why would anyone give that up? There is a reason why I said that stuff around Marvel buying DC is clickbait. It is clickbait because no one gives up money or control. The author states that to sell or license, a sale or licensing deal would arguably weaken AT&T's DC business without reducing its massive long-term debt of $151 billion. So this corporate raider is basically saying, hey, you need to streamline things. You need to get things in shape. Why? He's doing that not because he hates comic books. No, he's looking at the $151 billion that AT&T is in debt. Why is AT&T in debt? Because they've been buying up everything and their mother and probably not doing it for cash. They've been leveraging things. And so they are in debt of $151 billion, which is not an insignificant amount of money. But the point is that by giving up DC Comics, not only would they be losing control, losing money, it doesn't even help the actual problem. And the problem is that they are in debt $151 billion. The $300 million that comes from DC Comics does not matter. It is 0.20% of AT&T's annual revenue. It does not matter. The author goes on to say that recent reports also suggest that Dan was fired due to creative conflicts instead of financial ones. They say that Dan had clashes with writers over his micromanagement of storylines and his planned 5G reboot for the DC universe. All of these things likely exacerbated the conflicts and the issues that people saw. He concludes here that it is doubtful that AT&T will sell off or kill DC Comics anytime soon. DC won't significantly boost Warner Media's revenues, which is true. It's contributing, but its comic book storylines could still provide valuable fodder for future TV and film projects at Warner Media. There is rich source material. Decades upon decades upon decades of rich source material and characters that exist. The money that comes from comic books, while not substantial in the grand scheme of all of these things, is still substantial. You give me that kind of money and I will live like a king, right? The point is that it's so important that we go beyond the headline of what it is that we see that people are putting out there, and we think about it. Take the time to think about what is actually being said and kind of evaluate, why would that happen? Why would anyone do that? Or is it just clickbait to get your attention? People talk about the comic book industry going out of business. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It is a $1 billion industry that does not evaporate overnight. There are people that want to have a woe is me attitude because they don't want to actually look at the details. They don't want to actually look at the facts. They want to say, woe is me, the sky is falling. That's not how we should be. It's not how we should be. We need to take some time to actually look at the facts because the facts matter. The facts of one comic versus another comic, second print versus first print. Does it have the value stamp or does it not have the value stamp? All of these nuances, the facts, the details actually matter. They matter. Don't gloss over them. Don't let anybody tell you that they don't matter, because they do. When you look at the facts will tell you that change is a coming at DC, but not because the organization is about to be shut down. At least that's my belief. My firm belief is that if they were to shut it down, there's going to be some signals. There's going to be some signs. There's going to be some public disclosures, some statements that are part of some financial reports that are going to happen, because while not a tremendous amount of money in the grand scheme of things, it is an amount of money that shareholders need to be notified about, because the officers of an organization actually have a fiduciary responsibility. The news will not be broken on a website that no one has heard of before. It's not how this happens. It's not how it happens. Don't fall for the clickbait. So on this next segment, I want to take a moment to take a call from a subscriber, from one of you, a subscriber by the name of Andrew, who recently picked up a really cool book based upon some advice that I provided here on the channel.
So, Andrew, I want to thank you for taking a couple of moments to chat with me. You posted up on YouTube that you recently picked up a really cool book. What was the book that you snagged?
Oh, it was Werewolf by Night 32, and it was raw, but I'm guessing it's about an 8.0 as is.
Okay, so Werewolf by Night, about an 8.0. Where did you find this book?
Offer Up.
So you found it off of Offer Up?
Yep.
How did you hear about Offer Up?
On your channel. I just got back into comics about a year ago, and found your channel shortly after that, and then I remember you had this thing where you were talking about other places that you find books, other places besides eBay, right? And I don't remember if it was Offer Up or Let Go, or maybe both of them you put on there. But anyway, that's how I ended up finding Offer Up, and every once in a while I go look on there, and it's hard. I live in LA, right? So there's a lot of competition out there.
I think what's really cool, though, is that it kind of validates some of the things that I talked about on the channel, right? This idea that you can find books out there and you don't necessarily just have to go to a comic shop. Sometimes looking in, an unusual place might actually yield some results. And it sounds like it did in this case with a really cool book.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely, because I'm a cheapskate like everybody else, right? I don't want to pay full price for anything. So my goal is to get a Daredevil 1, like maybe 4.5 plus.
Okay.
And, but I don't want to. That's like a $2,000 book. I don't want to pay $2,000 for it. So my idea is to find stuff and to trade up for it. And anyway, so I kind of do that on the side, just trying to trade up and get the funds together to pay for the Daredevil. So
there you go. And I think you mentioned that you're not really like a Werewolf by Night, Moon Knight kind of fan. Is that true?
yeah, not at all. I wasn't looking for that book. I just happened to run across it, and I saw it. That I noticed it had been there for a few months, and the guy had the price like marked down. And I run across those all the time. Usually, when you see that, that means the person just abandoned the ad or whatever, right? But anyway, I decided just to write the guy. Didn't think anything of it. Next morning, he responded. If the price was already low, I got him to drop it even a little more, just to save a few more bucks. And then, of course, like everybody, I'm thinking, okay, is the book, maybe he cut something out of the book. Maybe there's going to be color touch.
Right.
Something's going to be wrong with it, right? Even though I asked him, he said no, but I still feel like something's going to be wrong. The book gets here, and the book is exactly like it looked in the pictures.
Wow. How long had the post been up there? Do you recall that?
I think it was about 4 months.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So this book, really fantastic, great book, is floating out there for about 4 months on an app, and I'm guessing lots and lots of people have seen it. No one reached out to this guy. You do it. You score a really awesome book. Are you going to hold it, or are you going to do something else with it to work your way towards that Daredevil 1?
Oh, I think I'm going to sell it. Sell it for sure. My only thing is, do I sell it now, or do I wait for the TV show to come?
Yep.
So, but I'm a little worried that some Daredevil news will come up, and then the book spikes again, and then I'm priced out. So
that's actually a legit concern. That is actually a legit concern, that while you're waiting for one set of news to pop on one side, there is something that affects what you're trying to do on the other side, which is legit. I mean, are you thinking that you're going to sell it raw, or you think you're going to send it in, get it graded, and then maximize the opportunity? Like, have you thought that far ahead, or no?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I press books on my own, but with that one, I sent it to a professional presser, and then off to CGC after that.
There you go.
And then, I'm just gonna, pray for a high grade, and then, see what the market price is, and maybe I'll sell it. Maybe I'll wait till the summer. Hopefully, Feige helps me out with an announcement.
I think the good news, though, is that you honestly probably have a little bit of time, and I say that because there's still that 2-year ban or restriction on the Netflix characters making any kind of appearances, and I think that doesn't that run until like October or November? So you have a little bit of time, but it sounds like you're moving down a really good path of at least being ready to maximize the opportunity with the Werewolf by Night book should something pop up. So fingers crossed that it all works out for you.
So Andrew might be like many of you in that he is actually new to comic book collecting. And I think the great thing about this channel is that it is really set up for those of you out there that are new to comic book collecting, newly returning to comics, and even those of you that might be seasoned collectors. I try to, on the channel, put out a variety of content that really appeals to a lot of people. And so if you are a new collector, for example, there is actually a playlist that is actually set up here on the channel with all kinds of really great content for you. If you are newly returning to comics or even a seasoned veteran, there is also content that is here for you as well. And all you have to do is really to look for the playlist, or if you search for Regie Collects and plug in some kind of term, more than likely you are going to find a video that I've already created that I've put out there for you. But in the event that you aren't able to find those videos or whatever it happens to be for whatever reason, send me a message and you can actually reach out to me on Instagram at Regie Collects, or you can send me an email to Reggie@Regie Collects, and I will happily guide you in the right direction. To all of my comic book soldiers out there, I want to thank you for being part of this inaugural episode of Roll Call. I have had a lot of fun in putting this together for you, and I hope that you've also enjoyed watching it. If so, I definitely want to encourage you to leave a comment behind. give a thumbs up to the video, and let's mix it up down in the comment section. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects, or you can send me an email to reggie@regiecollects.com. Take care.